Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Locked In Podcast, Season 3, Episode 7. Today, I will be joined by a former University of Maryland wrestler and buddy of mine here, Garrett Kappes. Welcome in, Garrett.
What's up, Sage? Thanks for having me, man. Not too bad. Nice holiday season.
Absolutely. How's That's what I was going to ask.
Nice
How was
holiday
your Christmas?
season.
Good?
Yeah. It's been good.
Awesome.
Nice and chill holiday, getting ready for the new year.
Right. I know it's crazy that this year seems like it flew by so fast, man. It's insane.
Yeah, I know it's been nuts, but good year though.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. All right, guys. So you can follow Garrett on IG at Garrett_Kappes on IG as displayed on the screen here. So make sure to go follow him there. And then letting everyone know how I know you, Garrett. We were both on our visit to the University of North Carolina at the same time for our recruiting for wrestling. So that's kind of how we first talked. Obviously, we were there together, and we stayed connected ever since then. So it's been a crazy journey for both of us.
Yeah, I know. What is that, 5 years now?
Yeah, I mean, it's 4. Was it 5 or 6 years even? I don't even know. It's been so long.
Yeah.
It's insane.
I know, it's crazy. Time flies.
Yeah, it really does, man. It's crazy. But yeah, so let's get it going here. We'll start off with the first question. At what age did you start wrestling, and what got you into it?
Yeah. So I started when I was 13.
Okay.
I originally grew up in like other martial arts, with like Taekwondo, those kinds of like striking forms. And I hated it. I wasn't
Okay.
the greatest at it as well. And I suffered an injury in competition at a tournament when I was 12. Broke my hand. And after that, I got into grappling with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And from that, I was like, oh, I love this. I love the grappling. I love, not getting hit in the face. And
Okay.
to get better at that, my dad convinced me to wrestle for 1 year. Wrestled for a year when I was 13, and I decided, you know what, I want to go in this. I want to go 10 toes in this, and just committed myself to it, and now we're here.
That's awesome. So you started in Taekwondo?
Yeah, I did when I was 4 years old.
Okay.
And yeah, I did that till I was 12. Again, I wasn't very good at it. I did have success in competitions, but yeah, I'm not the type of guy to do that kind of sport.
Okay.
And then found grappling and wrestling. Fell in love with it and just went with that.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's I never knew that about you. I know that we'll get into it in a little bit about the BJJ stuff, but yeah, that's crazy. I never knew you did that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So then obviously along with that, so this kind of answers, we already kind of answered this question, but any other sports besides Taekwondo? Did you play football? Did you do any of that stuff?
No, I was pretty singular while growing up.
Okay.
I was, Taekwondo till 12 and then transitioned to grappling. And kind of like the most I did at one time was jiu-jitsu and wrestling, which are kind of almost the same thing.
Right.
When I was in high school, my freshman year, I played football. And then my sophomore year, I ran cross country. And then junior and senior year, I just focused on wrestling. So that's probably like the most like crossover that I had.
For sure. Yeah, that's crazy, man. I never knew that about the Taekwondo thing. That's usually, it's always soccer, football, something along those lines that people grew up with. But that's a cool thing. I like that. And then where did you grow up for the people that don't know?
Yeah, so born and raised in Maryland. Live in a suburb right outside of DC called Bowie. Been here for 23 years now. Yeah, just in Maryland. Went to high school in Maryland, born in Maryland, college in Maryland, all that.
It's awesome. Yeah, that's a cool story. It's kind of, I mean, that was gonna be me if I stayed at Michigan, or if I committed to Michigan State, which I thought I was gonna do, growing up, but ended up obviously going to Lock Haven and all that. So, but yeah. So speaking of high school there, so what high school did you attend, and how was your high school career for wrestling? We can dig into that.
Yeah. So I went to the McDonough School. It's a pretty prestigious private school in Baltimore County, not too far from the city. For those who wrestle, it's this high school that Miles Martin went to.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, that was a trip. Um, my up until 8th grade, I was homeschooled too. So being at home,
Okay.
being close to home, kind of having flexibility in, like I was still every day was school, had to do school, but still having the flexibility to prioritize sports a lot more than say public school or like a private grade school allows you as well.
Right.
Um, which was great. I thrived in it, and still got a lot out of it, especially academically as well. And then going to high school, McDonough offer one, it's like an hour and a half away with traffic.
Hmm.
Um, but they offer 5-day boarding, where you can live there from Sunday night to Friday night. And
Okay.
so going from being homeschooled to living away from home for high school, that was crazy. That first year was really hard. Just like that super huge shift in like just like life dynamic. But it was great for me. Gave me a real feel for what college is going to be like, what life further down the road was going to be like. And it was a great school. Academics are for that school are considered top in the nation for high schools. Just a great network as well. And then wrestling. By the time my training partners and stuff there were like top tier. The local public schools in my county are not very good for wrestling or just
Okay.
sports in general. Um, so being able to go somewhere where wrestling was like a pretty big deal. They were. I think my senior year we were ranked in the top 25 in the nation for teams. Um, so like just a really great environment to really grow us and hone us, especially on the mat.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's, so essentially you went to a college high school. That's the best way
I
to look
did,
at
yeah, yeah. It
that.
was it was very much a college high school. Yeah,
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's so as far as your success, so you guys are prep school. You
hmm
guys are in the prep state, like prep states, right?
yes. Maryland has 3 state tournaments: small schools, big schools, and private. And then
Okay.
we went on to do like national preps and that kind of stuff.
Gotcha. Okay, and then how did you do personally in your high school career?
Yeah, high school. So I was a 4-year varsity starter. I was a 4-time national prep All American, 1-time
Okay.
finalist. I was a 3-time state finalist, 2-time champ. Um, I was a 5-time Fargo All American, 3 in Greco, 2 in freestyle. I placed the Ironman. Should have been 3 times, but only twice.
Okay.
Um, and then yeah, I think that's. Oh, and then a couple times Super 32 All American, um,
Okay. So
for high
you
school.
really did everything. You did all the big
Yeah,
national tournaments.
yeah, and
Okay.
that was a great thing that going to McDonough like really helped us with too, because I think it's just public schools across the board. Like the state doesn't allow public schools to go do tournaments like Beast of the East, go do really big tournaments where you can go up to Pennsylvania and wrestle the top kids, or even go to like Virginia or West Virginia or Delaware, where you're seeing like top tier regional competition. McDonough, that was every week, multiple times a week, every
Right.
weekend. We were seeing the best guys in the country. We were going to big things like the Virginia duels and competing against Nazareth, Erie Cathedral Prep. Going out to Ironman and seeing St. Paris Graham and all these just stellar programs, and just week after week after week.
That's awesome. Yeah. So that was going to be my next question is what national tournaments you did, which obviously you kind of did everything there. Being a multiple Fargo All American, that in itself was is enough to get you recruited. That's for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and
So,
that's what kind of put me on the map. I my first 2 years, freshman and sophomore year, I had like decent success.
mhm.
But my summer going into my junior year, and then junior and senior years was when like things kind of blew up, and when I when a big push for like recruiting or just like having my name out there happened too, because of just the national success, especially with something like Fargo.
Right. Yeah. No, most definitely. So along with that, so when did you realize that wrestling was like something that you were for sure going to do at the next level in college?
Um, I think it was a goal of mine since I think that first year of wrestling that I did in middle school. I think um, probably the my first time. I think it was my third time at Fargo. Yeah.
Okay.
Um, and right after my sophomore year, um, and like I had a great sophomore year. I was a state finalist. I got fifth at preps, and like I was like, all right, yeah, I can compete with these guys. Um, and the guys who got top three at preps that year, all of them went D1 and had pretty solid careers too. So I was like, okay, yeah, I maybe can do this. But then I went out to Fargo, and uh, I beat like three guys ranked in the top 15, and for my placement match, I beat the guy who was fifth in the country,
Okay.
and like after that, I was like, all right, yeah, I think I can probably go to college, or like maybe I
Right.
can do more than just where I'm at right now. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, and then 2 weeks later was when the recruiting uh, opened up for me, and it was like, dang, okay, yeah, maybe I can do this. And
Right.
especially like I was thinking maybe like, yeah, I could do like a good D3, good maybe a good D2. I wasn't thinking I was D1 potential, even though that was like my goal. Um,
Right.
but yeah, after that, it was kind of like, all right, yeah, I can do this for sure.
Yeah, I mean, all the stuff you just told me about what you placed at and everything you did. I mean, that's obviously D1 for sure at that point.
Yeah,
You know, that's a lot of good tournaments and a lot of good placements there. So, what college choices did you have then when you were actually getting recruited?
yeah. So I think in total I had um 25 to 30 schools reach out to me.
Okay.
But the ones that were like kind of, I mean, the four schools that I visited were Maryland, which is where I ended up going, um, North Carolina, Chapel Hill, which is where we met and
Right.
where we visited together, Duke, Harvard, and I had like Stanford as like my five, but
Okay.
but that was like right around the time where they were like, "Hey, we're gonna drop the program. Don't commit here," kind of thing. But
Gotcha.
yeah, that I would say that's like where my top five was.
So a lot of prestigious schools for academics. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I think that was a big thing. Just with the high school I went to as well, was like um, really making sure that was something I heavily considered as well.
Right. Yeah, because it's all about the next level. What using wrestling as a tool at that point too.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So what made you choose Maryland out of those schools?
Well, it was free. That was
Okay.
a big thing. They were one of the few schools that offered me a full ride, and that was one of the things that I kind of held up there as like a something I needed to do. To like make sure I wasn't burdening my parents with the financial load. Um, but yeah, the scholarship and money available, academically, the major that I had was like spot on exactly what I wanted to do. And then at first, like while I was being recruited was a big coaching change.
Okay.
While I was growing up in wrestling, Kerry McCoy was the coach. Love Kerry, love the staff that he had. But Maryland as a program was not very good,
Right.
in terms of just results, but just also culture. And then the coaching changed to what it is now. And I kind of like kept it as a backdoor option as like the state school, maybe something, like, yeah, if nowhere else is good with money, like they want me because I'm like a big in-state product. I'll
Right.
keep it as like my back pocket option. But I kind of really you know clicked with the coaches. I'd say fell in love with it, and ended up deciding, after my visit, um, that's where I needed to go. Um, but yeah, it was kind of like a perfect mesh of everything.
Hmm.
It's not where I wanted to go, but I think because the deciding factor was the scholarship as well.
Right. And I completely get that, man. That's like kind of how I was. So my parents told me, they were going to help me with any sort of, food, apartment type deal. But as far as the tuition goes, that was going to be on me. So that was something I was going to have to cover with, student loans and all that stuff. So it was the same thing for me. I told myself right away, I said, I am not going to college unless I get a full ride because I do not want to
Yeah,
burden myself long term. And obviously that's a big reason I chose Old Dominion, who ended up dropping their program, and then
yeah,
going to Lock Haven. So I completely get that. It's hard, especially coming out, with all the NIL stuff that's a thing now. It's like these colleges
yeah,
can get these kids locked in to make good money right away. So why would they not be choosing those type of schools, right?
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so that was crazy to me. But yeah, I completely understand that. And as far as Maryland goes, how was it competing for a Big Ten school? So Big Ten schedules are fairly grueling in terms of the
Yeah,
schedule. So yeah, dig into
yeah,
that a little bit.
yeah. So, well, our first year was COVID, so everything was totally different.
Right,
Um, and like I don't know, like it's very, um, you know, like in high school, like you're kind of like big fish in a small pond. It feels like, and it's kind of easy, I'd say, to
right,
get into where like that's the state of things. Um, College wrestling as a whole, it's not just Big Ten, but I'd say Big Ten as well. It's like, yeah, you're not him. And
right,
like even if you come in, like we see a lot of guys currently right now who are coming straight out of high school and they're world beaters. But
right.
yeah, it's still just like the um the effort that's needed, what's needed, just like all the supporting things, not just the wrestling piece. More like in high school to like be at the level that we like both achieved as well. Like it has to be a lifestyle.
Right.
This is everything. And
Absolutely.
Big Ten's no joke. Even if we had a normal schedule, like we're seeing the best guys in the world. A lot of these guys in the Big Ten, especially in the upper weights, are like these are the guys who are, Olympic alternates or Olympic representatives, world representatives, those kinds of things. Um, but yeah, so my freshman year, true freshman year, with COVID and everything, I started, and it was just conference only. Um,
Okay.
Luckily, kind of not really luckily, I guess. Um, my I had a bad case of the flu the week before our first competition, um,
Okay.
and I my first official college match would have been Gable,
Oh, really?
but I was still getting over the flu, so I didn't get to wrestle him.
Oh,
Um,
Lord.
so I guess I dodged a bullet with that. But then
Yeah.
the following week, I got cleared and came back to have my first actual match be Mason Paris.
Oh, geez,
So
Louise,
not
man.
not much easier.
Yeah, for people,
And
I'm going to cut you off for 1 second. For people that
yeah,
don't know this, don't know much about wrestling, Gable Stevenson is an Olympic gold medalist. Mason and two-time Hodge Trophy winner.
hmm
Mason Paris is a national champ and Hodge Trophy winner as well when Gable left. So those are his first two that he would have had. So and actually did wrestle Mason, obviously. That's
yeah.
crazy.
And it didn't go very well. But yeah, and like that's like not everyone's gonna be like that guy every
Right,
weekend where it's like a Gable, a Mason, a Kurt Vliet, or any of these guys that are currently just like running the scene.
right,
But every guy that you wrestle is it's not just like there's no fluff at all, especially in the Big Ten. Like
right.
I mean you see it across the board in every weight class too. Like there's a reason why we get so many automatic qualifiers for the national tournament. It's just
Right.
because everyone in there is just a stud. Um,
Yeah.
and it's just like any given Sunday, like they can go out and take these spots. They can go and All American. They can go win, and then a lot of these guys end up going and being world alternates, Olympic alternates, representatives, and medalists.
Yeah, and that's, honestly, that's the big thing is, with all the rankings and so on and so forth. When you get Big Ten guys wrestling each other, they always post like, "Oh, so and so that was number 10 upset number 3." It's like, is it really an upset? I mean,
Yeah,
it's just the schedule, and it's any given Sunday, like you said, with those guys. That's for sure. But yeah, we'll dig into your career at Maryland a little bit here after today's sponsor. So I'll throw that up here on the screen here. So the sponsor of today's episode is Life Advantage. Oxidative stress, it's in everyone's body on this planet. It is the leading cause of aging and disease. What if we could reduce that by 40% in just 30 days? We can. With one NRF2 activator taken daily, your oxidative stress levels will be significantly lowered while supporting the body's natural ability to repair and rejuvenate its own cells. Activate healthy aging today with one little yellow pill. If you'd like to learn more or purchase NRF2, reach out to me directly on IG at SER_Sage or visit the link tree in my bio to check out the LifeVantage website for yourself. Thank you, LifeVantage, for sponsoring today's episode. Okay, so we kind of already talked about this. You know a little bit about NRF2 already. Your mom's big into
yeah,
LifeVantage, so I don't need to tell you about it. She obviously knows a lot about it there. But yeah, so digging in to your time at Maryland, we talked about that, like kind of the overall experience there. What would you say as Maryland as a whole in terms of academics and your whole experience there? What was the best things and maybe the worst parts of being there?
yeah. Man, I mean, it was like this has definitely been the most transformative years of my life, I'd say. Um,
Mm-hmm.
on the wrestling side of it, I didn't have a full career. Like I started my freshman year, like we kind of alluded to, and
Right.
like I wrestled the majority of that COVID season, and I got whooped the whole time. Even matches where like, um, I had a lot of health issues going on my freshman year. I came into college with my shoulder just like hanging by a thread almost,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to just like push through it for that season. And then there's other health issues where, guys that I should have been uh, bonus pointing, I was losing in rideouts. But so freshman year didn't go great. Um, and then, rest of my career, I didn't wrestle another match. Sophomore year, I was planning on redshirting, developing, and then coming back to the starting lineup.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then had had my first shoulder surgery my sophomore year, which nothing crazy, just simple scoping. I did have to have one of my nerves repaired though,
Okay.
but nothing crazy. Um, and came back way ahead of schedule, was feeling good, ready to get after it. Then got hurt even worse. As soon as I started coming back, tried to push through it for way too long. And then had to have another surgery my junior year, which led me to medically disqualify myself. And so definitely not the athletic career that I was hoping for or wanting to have.
Right.
But I think again, kind of as we alluded to a few minutes ago, like wrestling was a vehicle to get to college. It was a vehicle to have that scholarship, to be able to have greater things than just, hey, look at me, I got a national chip on my belt. Because
Right.
like even if you're a stud football player going to the league, a stud basketball player going to the association, you're really good at badminton or something and you're going to be a world champion in that, like
Yeah.
it comes to an end at some point. There's greater things, and like that's like academics, that's friends, that's um the relationships and network that you build from university, and that's a big reason why you go.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in that aspect, Maryland has been great for me.
Yeah.
Last spring I graduated with a bachelor's of science in kinesiology, just glorified exercise science, basically.
Right. Right.
Um, but and it was like the exact major for what I was hoping for, to get in my undergrad, and for future career plans. And it's opened up a lot of doors for me in that regard academically, and just network, professional, all those kinds of metrics. And then socially too, it's, I've met people who I'm going to have as the best men of my wedding. I've gotten hurt and burned by people, and, just really matured in that, um, just that life as a whole. And I think Maryland did a great job with that. Um, and even though it's a big public university with 50,000 students or something, and like, you know, like I could have done without the size of that, but it's
Right.
where I felt like I needed to go when I made the decision. You know, it helped me a lot.
Yeah.
Um,
Talking
and
about
ultimately,
networking, I like that, the networking part, because it's more so, especially when you get out of college and you get out of like the wrestling world, it's all about connections, right? And
yeah,
connections are the big thing. It's more of who you know at that point than what you know. You still need to know a lot, but it's more of who you know.
yeah,
But yeah, yeah,
yeah, definitely. And like for anyone who may be listening that's like currently in college, going to go to college, or just like whatever level of life stage you're into, it's like don't just be singular. And um even though like in my sport I was pretty singular and just like, oh yeah, I got to focus on wrestling. um and even academically I was like, oh yeah, like I want to be in sports medicine of some regard, working with the body. um Even though you can be pretty singular in your pursuit and your purpose, just do everything, do whatever you can. Like I took some super random classes.
okay,
I talked to whoever I possibly could. And even in my struggles with like my surgeries, and not being able to wrestle anymore, just using that time to, um, go and be a part of other things to make my time still beneficial. Like, I was a 2.5 year representative on our SAC board, Student Athlete Advisory Committee. And I
okay,
was able to go to the Big Ten headquarters multiple times and have
nice,
discussions with like the commissioner of the Big Ten. Uh, I was able to talk with Charlie Baker, the current president of the NCAA. Um,
nice,
and just like being able to have connections with people all across the university, in from all walks of life, all different sports, NARPs, different majors, and from other schools too. Like I got people that I interact with still kind of frequently from like Oregon, one of the new schools in the Big Ten, because I met them
yep,
at the headquarters one time, and it's like, oh hey, like let's bounce things off each other, to make the lives of student athletes better, and even just the Gen Pop even better. Um, so like just do everything you can, and like even though I want to be, um, like most likely a physical therapist for my career, like I'm still working with people and trying to help the university in terms of like, all right, how do we tackle NIL problems, or
right,
how's the student athlete experience? That has nothing to do with being a physical therapist.
right,
But that helps me in my network, for the future, for when I'm a practitioner, or if I need someone else who's like going to be a top dog lawyer, and God forbid that I need a lawyer for some
right.
reason. But
I
like
love
just having that network,
it.
and it's like,
Right.
oh yeah, like this is a good buddy of mine from college, let me get up with them, and like just putting yourself out there, trying to have your network.
Yeah, that's great. I help run a wrestling facility here in Michigan now, and I see a lot of high school kids that kind of have the aurora around them that they need to go Division 1 and that they
Yeah.
need to commit to a big school and all this stuff. And I went to, obviously, Lock Haven's a smaller Division 1 school for wrestling, so I went there, and then you went to a bigger one.
Hmm.
It's really just about finding the area, the school that fits for you. And it's not really about like we got to get that out of kids' heads that it's, hey, I have to commit to a big school, I have to do Division 1. Like it's always an option for these kids to go Division 2, Division 3, NAIA. Like there's been several guys that have come through the pipeline that started in one of those smaller schools and worked their way up
Hmm.
into Division 1, right? So and that all kind of starts with understanding that that it's okay to do that. And it's getting
Yeah.
that, and especially NIL, like all these guys want to go to bigger schools, get their name out there. Oh, maybe I'm going to have a better chance at NIL. It's like, it's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And, again, not everyone is that D1 guy too.
right,
And I mean, you look at any statistics with like proportion of people who go to these different levels, it's like, just like the 1% of the 1% of the 1% is D1, but
right,
even a smaller percentage of those people are like going to actually have success from it as well. And like, it's not just about like, having like, it's good to dream it, like chase after it. Like, that's awesome. I highly encourage it.
right,
But yeah, maybe it's not, maybe it's not for you. Maybe it's not exactly what you need. Um, whether you go to like maybe an Ivy League is not the best thing for you academically. Maybe
right.
going community college first and then going there, or maybe going D3 JUCO like you brought up. Yeah,
Right, right, exactly. Yeah. So going off that a little bit. So obviously you dug into your injuries already. How many total surgeries did you end up having?
yeah. I had two, both on my left shoulder.
Okay.
Like I said, sophomore year, first one was uh
Hmm.
just a basic scope surgery, labral repair, and nerve repair as well.
Okay.
Um, I came into college with a pretty messed up shoulder. And then it where my labrum was torn, it just like kept getting shredded up until my sophomore year. And where my labrum was torn the worst, I had a cyst growing to like kind of
Oh,
fill the
geez.
space. And it grew so large that it was like compressing one of the nerves that supplies motor and sensory functions. Um, and the way I found out was we were doing a preseason stadium workout, and we were
Okay.
doing backwards crawls up our lower bowl of our stadium.
Okay.
Um, Terrible. I don't recommend it.
Sounds horrible.
Um, it was, but we had to do 5 of them before we could like leave and like go to class. And on my third one, my arm just like died. I like fell, like ate it on the stairs, concrete stairs, terrible. Um, but then I was like, oh yeah, there's something wrong. Got surgery for that. Um, and then almost a year later, had my second surgery, which was a another labral scope, but also bone replacement too.
Okay.
Um, I was missing my glenoid socket, which uh, for people who don't know how kind of like the body and anatomy, the shoulder is a ball and socket joint. So like there's a ball part, there's a socket part, kind of like cupping it. Um, when I got the MRI for my second surgery, instead of this, I had it like this. So just no socket.
That's a problem.
And
Major problem.
yeah, and from that, I was having chronic subluxation and dislocation, where like every time doing something as trivial as like opening a door with my left arm, it would just pop out. Um, and then try and think of trying to wrestle um,
Yeah.
with that going on too. But I tried to push through it for 4 months,
Yeah.
and then found out that I needed that. Um, so they just cleaned up my labrum, and then they took a cadaver ankle basically, um,
Okay.
and screwed it in. So now I have a dead guy's ankle for a socket. Um,
That's
but
crazy.
and kind of instead of just like kind of like being here with it, it's more so
Uh-huh.
like cupping around it, so
Okay.
it doesn't come out of socket as
So that's
it.
better ultimately.
Yeah, my range of
Yeah.
motion's not better
That's
ultimately,
yeah,
but
that's true. Right.
I
Right.
won't have. It'll be a lot harder for my arm to dislocate if it ever does.
Okay. Yeah. So it sounds very familiar to my story, man. That's, obviously we've chatted a lot when I was leaving,
Yeah.
when I decided I was going to leave college. And it's, I don't know about you, but this is the way I looked at it. It's something that you have a passion for. And we'll get into faith in a second.
Hmm.
But something you have a passion for that you've done your entire life. And your body just doesn't allow you to do it, and it hurts to do the thing you're doing. It really makes you
Yeah.
lose your passion for it, or at least lose the drive. And it was the hardest thing I've ever done still yet to this point, was having the nerve to actually, the way my last practice finished, which not too many people know, is we were doing top bottom. We were like the last 10 minutes of practice, and I've always been really explosive, and I was on bottom and my knee was locked up, and I just feel like I felt like I couldn't move off of it. Couldn't
Hmm.
explode out. And I just kind of tapped the guy on top of me. I'm like, hey, I got to get up. And like, he's like, got off. And he's like, hey, what's wrong? I was like, I just can't do this. And I walked to the locker room, and just mentally, I'm like, I know I'm so much better than this, and my body's just not allowing me to be better. And so I took that night. I was like, I have to call this, man. I was dealing with it for months. I called my parents months ahead of time and was kind of talking to them about how hard the day in and day out of it was. And they're like, they supported me all the way. They said, you do what you need to do. We completely understand it. Cause at that point I was 6 surgeries deep, 5 on
Hmm.
my knees. And I was just, I just kept telling myself, I'm like, no, I'm going to regret it. If I walk away, I'm going to regret it. Right.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I got to do it. So I kept doing it, pushed my body to the absolute limit to where I could barely step out of the shower. And I was icing my knee every night, and that's just not how I wanted to live. And I had to ultimately choose for my well-being, mental well-being on top of that. And it was the hardest thing I had to do, but honestly, looking back, I wouldn't change it. I know it sounds really weird.
Hmm. Yeah,
God
I
works in
completely agree.
mysterious
Yep.
ways. Yeah, he
Yeah.
works in mysterious ways. So talk a little bit about, you said how that's how you walked away, but how hard was that process for you? Was it a similar thing?
Yeah. Again, I mean, one of the hardest things I've had to go through. You know, like I know I talked a lot about like, yeah, like don't just be so singular and like do everything else, and kind of like, how college I was focused on like good academics and good social and everything.
Right.
But I mean, since I was 4 years old, um, and from being homeschooled for so long, and then like the reason I was able to go to a great school like McDonough or be able to go to Maryland was because of athletic success.
Right.
Um, and kind of just like that whole identity with being an athlete
Right.
from when I was 4 years old, like being homeschooled, I'm not around like a 20 plus kids in a classroom, able to have friends that way. So my outlet for being social was sports.
Right.
Um, going to high school, and it's like the reason I got there was the reason they knew I existed was kind of because I had success on the mat.
Exactly.
The reason I could go to a good university for free was because of wrestling.
Right.
And like that becomes, an idol, very, very easily.
Yep.
It was for me. And, I like if I was winning, I was good. If I wasn't winning, I wasn't as good. Um,
Yep.
and yeah, and just, living like that for so long. And then college, I mean, both of us, like you just brought up as well. And like I said with my shoulder, like, you know, first year, that COVID year was like, hey, you're not him.
Right.
And I'm like, man, like this sucks. Like I still had some good things academically going on. I still had some pretty decent things socially going on.
Hmm.
But it's hard to, especially with a sport like wrestling. You gotta love this. You gotta
Right.
love this with every fiber of your being. And if you don't, then like it's gonna suck.
You're right.
And it sucks even if you love it too. But
It
you
does.
have to
That's for
love it.
sure.
You have to love it in order to do it.
Right.
It's too dang hard to not otherwise.
Yeah.
But
It's
with the surgeries, and just like from my first surgery, it's like I can't be away from this. Like trying to like force myself to come back earlier than I did. And
yep.
like my first one, it was like 6 months for return to sport. I started return to sport at 3.5 months, which is probably why I ended up injured again.
Right.
But it's just like that's 3 months too long. I can't be without this. Like
Right.
like I don't feel like myself without it. like trying to push through it, those kinds of things. And
Right.
yeah, when I found out that I needed that second surgery, as well, like, and the doctor was like, "Hey, you're not going to be able to wrestle again, and you'll be lucky if you can move your arm normally again." And it's kind of like, it's like, you're joking,
Right.
like you don't know what this means to me, kind of thing. Um,
Exactly.
how am I gonna, you know, function without this in my life?
Right.
All these kinds of things, and especially, um, that's at least where my mind took it as well,
Yeah.
for just how much I relied on sports for just life.
Right.
Um, yeah, and you know, uh, thankfully now that's not where I'm at, and that's not where
Right.
either of us are at. We
Right.
have a lot more, and like, I can echo you as well. It's definitely like the best thing that could have happened to me too.
Right.
In the moment, it
Right.
sucked.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's definitely the best thing that could have happened to me for sure.
Yeah, it's a tough battle, man. I still have so obviously being that I help at a wrestling facility, I'm not wrestling every day, so my body can take it. But I still have
Yeah,
the itch to wrestle a lot, and we got a lot of high schoolers in there, and so when I can, I still wrestle with those guys, and I'm not pushing my body through the D1, wrestling in the morning, lifting and cardio, and then wrestling in the afternoon, and then the schedule, and it's I still have the itch and I still love to compete. It's just so
yeah,
hard, and you got to find different ways to do it. And that's you got to fill that gap. You got to fill that hole with something else, whatever that might be. So
yeah. Yeah, I'm in the same boat right now too. I help a junior league as well, and I'm like, "Oh,
okay,
man, I still got it." I'm like, I can do it for
exactly,
sure." I'm like, "No, you don't got it." And
yeah,
even if I did, it's like I don't need to anymore.
right,
There's greater things in life. Like being able to, be physically able for my own kids, not just the kids in the club. Where, like,
exactly,
if I get at it again and I end up hurting my shoulder again, you know, like, there's greater things that can come from it, instead of just, a few seconds of glory maybe.
exactly,
Um, yeah, and I mean, it was great too, because even though it was the hardest thing in my life, it was the best thing. I mean, for both of us too.
right,
Um, but for me, it's what opened the door for a stronger foundation, a better foundation. That's what got me saved. You can probably tell from my shirt.
right,
Like that's how I found faith too. And even though it was the hardest thing in my life, it gave me the best gift. It gave me the best things. Um, and like an actual greater, um, just a greater thing to base myself on, and
greater
not something that,
purpose. Yep,
yeah, just something that's not gonna, hurt me and leave me down.
right,
And like one day it's good, the next day it's bad.
right. That's great. So before we dig into that a little bit, so you graduated with kinesiology
Mhm.
as your degree. What are your plans right now for that? I know you said PT. Are you working in an area with that right now?
So I'm still at Maryland doing classes.
Okay,
I had 5 years on my scholarship. So I
gotcha.
figured might as well do 5 years.
Right,
But I got my degree in 4. Um,
nice.
and I was gonna do a +1 master's program, but I declined it because none of the masters that were offered at Maryland were like applicable, or like seemed worthwhile.
Right,
Um, so I'm just doing a post back, which is just, a couple undergrad classes, um, in a different major, that, since I like already have a bachelor's in one major,
hmm,
just to knock out some more prereqs for PT school. But
nice.
yeah, so this past semester I was taking one class, I was teaching a class, and then I was an intern for the strength and conditioning department.
Okay,
Um, and then this coming semester, I'll be taking 2 classes, teaching a class, and then interning in the same department as well.
okay,
Um, so just knocking out prereqs, boosting my resume, and keeping like knowledge I'll need for career and future schooling, fresh with the teaching, and then the internship, just because, like, one, it's fun,
right,
um, but it helps set me up for other certificates. Again, resume booster, those kinds of things.
Yeah, that's awesome. That sounds great. That was a big thing for me when, so obviously I was outside of the state and not near my family when I was at college. So I didn't finish school at that point because it wasn't the best thing for me to stay out there
Yeah,
mentally. So I needed a support system. That's why I came back. But PT was just something that I always thought about doing, being that I was in PT for so long. And it's
yeah,
yeah, I think you'd be great in that too, with knowing everything and just our kind of work ethics. It's a great thing to be in, and you want to help people that have a problem with an injury. So, um, yeah. So going into to your bio here on Instagram, so we see is it A01 or A01?
AO1. Yeah.
Okay.
It's something that people that I've talked to, or like things that I've heard, and just different thing. It's audience of one, and then
Okay.
it has I think
The
I have the
cross.
cross emoji after it. Yeah.
Yep.
So audience of one, just focusing on just just him, only Jesus. Um,
Yep.
like again, how I kind of alluded to with sports and stuff. It's like it's a performance,
Yep.
and like if I'm winning, I'm good. If I'm losing, I'm not as good.
Right.
um you know if I'm winning, people like me more, it feels like, or like I'm getting attention, I'm getting gratified, these kinds of things. And like, who cares about that kind of stuff? Like, just focusing on the only audience that matters, which is just an audience of one, which is just God, what he thinks of how I'm living, how I'm walking.
Absolutely. That's a great. I love that. And as far as your faith goes, talk a little bit about that. I know it's something that I want to dig into a little bit with you, being that you're a big man of God there.
Yeah. So I'll kind of dive back into the injury and stuff too, and like how I came to faith, and then
Hmm.
some current things as well.
Yeah.
So with my second surgery, I found out, uh, that, from the surgery, the doc was like, "Hey, like, you can't wrestle again. You maybe won't have normal arm function ever again." Um, and from that, I was like pretty broken because, like I brought up, like wrestling was my foundation. It was my idol. Um, and there's a scripture I say, whenever I have opportunities to speak, to do public speaking.
Yeah.
Um, it's from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 7, and it's verses 24 to 27. I always say it in reverse because it fits like how my life story goes more.
Okay.
But it's those who hear my words and don't follow them are like the fool who builds his house on sand. Storms will come, winds will blow, and the house will fall with a mighty crash. Um, and so that's kind of like where I was. My foundation was wrestling, and it's
Yep.
something that's finite. Even if I went on to be, just undefeated, uh, like have all the success I could possibly have, all the following, all the sponsors, all whatever.
Hmm.
Wrestling's not gonna be with me every day until the day I die. Like,
Right.
our bodies decay where we can't do it to the same level. Um, it's just like it's not going to be there. Um, so I had a foundation of sand, and a storm came with these surgeries, and just reality checks that, like, hey, you're not that guy. And you know, uh, like the house that I built on this sand, the sand just blew away, house fell. And I just kind of like didn't know what I had anymore, based on this doctor saying like, hey, you can't wrestle anymore.
Right.
And the whole time while I'm growing up too, I had other big things in life happen, and just just a lot of exposure and using just like bad and wrong things. I was in high school, I was partying a lot and all the time, and I thought like I was okay to do that because I still had a lot of success.
Right.
And it was kind of like, again, that like social outlet because I didn't really have anything else.
Right.
So now that I didn't have wrestling, it was like, all right, well, I'm just gonna go do these other things that are killing me, um, to fill the void, because that's all that I kind of had besides wrestling, maybe.
Right.
And that was like a month and a half spiral of just, doing it more and more and more and just wrong, using it in the wrong ways and just like trying to just like cope, until I finally had enough and I was just like, all right, yeah, I can't take this anymore. Um, and I think it was 2.5 weeks before the surgery, I made an attempt on my life.
Okay.
Luckily, I didn't succeed. I'm still here, thank God. But
Yeah.
um, I was like, I got to such a bad place with like, even when things were good, even before all this happened, um, you know, I I was in a wrong place with where I held everything and like where the totem pole of everything in my life was. Um,
Hmm.
and just like in that free fall, feeling like I had nothing in life. It's just kind of like, all right, this is, I guess I have nothing in life, so like why even bother? Um, but then after that, and it sucks that like it took that to kind of wake up and realize I needed help and something other than what I was
Right.
doing. But you know, hard headed. Um,
Yeah.
but after that, just I was like, all right, yeah, I need help. Like I can't live like this. I can't be trying to do these kinds of things.
Right.
And then our character coach, Daryl, he very similar story. Great guy, great man of faith. Um, you know, he reached out and was like, "All right, yeah, I'm gonna help this guy," and took me under his wing. He like chaperoned me everywhere because like I live like 30 minutes away from University of Maryland, and he lives like
Hmm.
5 minutes down the road from me. He like
Okay.
drove me from my house to campus all the time. Took me to church. Took me to like go get food. Go to like movies and stuff. Like just like hung out with me all the time. Just like really just like power of the presence in that. And from that, like I started getting exposed to church and like, just exposed to, things greater than just anything in life. And that was like my real first exposure besides just like celebrating Christmas or like,
Right.
because my kind of thing, when I was growing up was like Easter is about the Easter bunny kind of thing. It's not like there's no greater meaning to these things.
Right.
Um, but then, being exposed to that and kind of doing that as I'm like figuring that out while I'm going through rehab and trying to figure out other things going on in life, like if I'm even able going to be able to wrestle or whatever.
Hmm.
It took a while to finally like really grasp onto the concept. As I got healthier and as I like got out of my sling and out of my brace and those kinds of things, um, I started and getting more freedom in life back. I started creeping back into like my old ways a little bit because that's still all I really knew.
Right.
And just super disappointed in myself. I'm like, man, I can't be doing this to myself. I told myself I'm not going to live like this. Why am I doing it?
Yeah.
um and then just on my birthday, uh 2 years, almost 2 years ago now, uh I was just having a moment. I'm like, man, I'm so disappointed in myself. Why am I doing this? And I just felt felt the physical presence and heard the audible voice of God saying like, come to me, like I know you're weary, like just lay everything at my feet. And I knew from that moment that he's real, that it's the truth, that it's not just some you know like weird culty kind of thing maybe that
Right.
people may think of it.
Hmm.
And from that, just like I knew like this is the foundation I needed to that life is supposed to be built on and that I needed my life to be built on.
Mm.
um and from that, just been on fire for it and just doing as much as I can to be close to him and work to be as rooted on his foundation as possible. um and yeah, and the other half of that Matthew verse that I brought up a couple minutes ago was
Yeah.
those who hear my words and listen are like the wise man who built his house on the bedrock. Even though storms will still come, even though rains will still blow, the house still stands. And you know, just because like I have like a greater purpose, greater value, greater foundation, like doesn't mean that life's probably gotten harder since all
Right.
that has happened
It
too.
will. Yeah, it will.
Yeah, and uh, like since then, like both of my parents have gotten a lot sicker. I've had a lot of losses, just like in general with like loss of life, loss of opportunities, loss of friends, loss of like all these kinds of just different things. But it gets better because I have something better um, in my life that I build everything on. Um, and yeah, and it's opened so many doors too. And like it's just unreal the kinds of things that like I was so closed off to because I was so focused on the wrong things.
Hmm.
Like I got to go to Southeast Asia to over the summer for a month to um, to spread God's word, um,
That's awesome.
and to lead. I got to lead like sports camps for like refugee kids and like feed feed hungry kids and give them school supplies and like seeing how some of these kids like we gave them like a notebook for like school and just
Hmm.
like the joy because they haven't had their own notebook before. It's like, man, I'm so focused on wrestling practice like a couple years ago, like and like this like the fulfillment from these kinds of things um is just incredible. And the
Yeah.
network that I've been able to gain from it too, and just the love and the care that you can't get anywhere else unless it's with Jesus.
It
Um
makes you realize
and
how wealthy we all are, man, when you look at life on
yeah,
that side, right? And
yeah,
it's go ahead.
it's unreal. And yeah, I mean, going from something where you're just like so focused on, yourself, because like even though wrestling is a very individual sport, but it's also team based. Dual meets. You have a partner that helps
Mhm.
yourself get better too. But like going from something like that to just Team Jesus kind of thing, it's crazy. And just how wonderfully awesome it is.
Yeah. Life gets harder, man, when you see Jesus for who he actually is, because the devil's gonna work harder, right? He's gonna work harder to dig into your life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I've definitely realized that, but you know, like we've already won too. So even though it feels like the battle's still going on, even though we still take our losses and our licks and all
Yeah.
all these kinds of things, like we've still won.
Yeah. I'm glad to hear, man, that you found that and that helped you along your path. I didn't know about your attempt on your life. I'm so glad that you didn't succeed and
Yeah,
that Jesus, was there to help you. And if you ever need anything, just know I'm here for you, man. You're the same for me. I'll
yeah,
reach out to you if I ever need anything. So it's a
yeah.
tough life.
I'm good on that end, and I've been fine, with it as well. And
Hmm.
again, like I've had harder things happen since being told I can't wrestle anymore,
Right.
and like I'm able to wrestle again. Like I have pretty normal arm function. I've been able to, help train to a high level with a lot of guys that I work with. So I
Yeah.
didn't actually lose it. It's just not to the
Right.
way that I wanted it.
For sure.
But yeah, and like I've had harder things go on. Um, but you know, I feel good now. But you know, it's definitely misery and just life needs company too. So yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. For everybody listening, all the young guys that are looking to go to college and everything, make sure you're still keeping Jesus number one, because at the end of the day, that's the thing that matters the most. And he's going to stay with you the longest and throughout your whole entire life. And this is all just temporary. So
yeah,
life on earth is
it's a
temporary,
privilege.
man.
It's a
Absolutely.
privilege.
Yeah. So also in your bio, it says retired D1 wrestler and CC BJJ brown belt. Talk about your jiu-jitsu
Yeah,
now and how, what are you planning on competing? Is that something you're just kind of doing to fill that itch or what?
yeah. So CCBJJ is the association that I'm a part of. The
Okay.
Carlos Catania, he's now a fifth degree black belt. I think he got that like a month ago.
Okay.
He's one of only I think like 20 fifth degrees in the country.
That's
Um,
insane.
yeah, but yeah, I'm a brown belt under him, which is the level right before black. Um, and yeah, I mean, it's what got me into wrestling. I used to compete in it, and I love it. It's so much fun. It's a lot easier than wrestling too,
Yeah.
in terms of like cardio and stuff. But like
Hmm.
how like the mental chess of it as well is just unreal. And that's something like since being like kind of healthy again and like not having wrestling and like that scratching that itch, like we talked about, it's just like, maybe I can compete. If I'm going to compete, I'll compete in this. Like I'll jump back into it
Yeah.
with this. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's just like something that, it scratches the itch of like, being able to do something that isn't, I mean, wrestling, even though you're not like explicitly doing like joint locks and getting choked out in wrestling, like
Hmm.
jujitsu, that's like the whole point of it. It's like,
Right.
trying to rip someone's arm off.
Exactly.
Um, and like for both of us, like I got a partially fake shoulder, you've got a busted knee and stuff, and it's like,
Yeah.
dang, this guy's going for my knee,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
Um, but it's a lot easier on your body and actually a lot safer than wrestling, I'd say too. So
Hmm.
it's a nice alternative for your body as well. But like, yeah, that's definitely something I've flirted with, trying to compete again, but
Yeah.
that won't be for a while if I do. And
Okay.
I know if I do, I'm gonna want to go all the way with it. Um,
Exactly. Yep.
try and do like 80 cc's or like um go for a world title or like something like that, and like because that's all I really knew. It's like, hey, if I'm gonna compete in something, I'm going on
Balls to the
100.
walls. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, but right
Yep.
now, trying to keep it just recreational. I help teach. Like with the coaching wrestling. I also help teach jujitsu at our school whenever Carlos or the other black belts aren't available. Just trying to do things to just keep myself involved. Um,
Yeah.
and give back, because like there's a reason why we've been given the talents that we have. Like both of us were elite wrestlers, and like there's a reason why we have it. We're not going to
Right.
compete till we're 80 years old. Like we got
Right.
to coach. Like there's a reason why we have the talents.
Exactly.
So yeah, doing that, giving back kind of thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know I'm the kind of the same way. When I came back and I started kind of feeling a little bit better, in terms of like my knee wasn't killing me every day because I actually had time off and kind of let myself recover a little bit.
Hmm.
Like, oh, maybe I boxed for 5 years and I wrestled for 18. I was like, maybe I can go into
Yeah,
MMA.
yeah,
I thought about doing that, and I always got it shut down by the wife. She's like, yeah, you're not going to do that. And it's smart. I shouldn't do that, but I still always want to try to just try it out because it's something I feel like I'd excel at. But at the end of the day, I want to keep my body healthy long term, and that's the reason I stepped away from wrestling in the first place. So
hmm
I gotta stick to it, even though I still want to do it. So I'm just finding my other niches and finding my other ways to compete and other things. So,
yeah.
but yeah, so that's kind of the last question here. It's been a great interview. I loved having you on here, man. Just talking through your whole journey. I hope a lot of people listen to this and understand, and see it from their side and their journey that they're about to be on. That they kind of take lessons from what we've learned along the way. That maybe we weren't doing the right things necessarily, and hopefully they can learn from that and try their best to keep Jesus at the forefront and
hmm
let Him lead them along the way and excel there. So again, hoping that everybody listens to this. This is a great one. But we're about to be changing in from 2024 to 2025. What do you believe your next year is going to look like if you could paint the picture?
Yeah. Man, that's tough. Um, like we can always dream and think of things and how we want things to go, but it never does. But man, I mean, uh, yeah, I mean, finishing strong with school. I got my last semester at Maryland. It's gonna
Yep.
suck too. I'm taking organic chemistry. That's killer class, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, just honestly, just like making the most of every opportunity I'm given, whether it's school, whether it's coaching, travel opportunities, um, you know, uh, uh, like relationally, whether it's like friends or with my girlfriend or with my family, um, just making the most of whatever I'm given. Um, and I currently plan on applying to physical therapy school this next cycle that's open, which is in like June, I think.
Okay.
But like even whether that is his plan for my life, whether I get accepted or not, um, just really listening to him and just focusing on him, keeping him first, audience of one again. And then, the rest will fall into place, whether I like it or not. It's his plan for his glory. He has
Absolutely.
plans for my well-being and my prosperity, even when things suck. But yeah, just finish strong with school, try to apply to PT school, um, get get certified as a strength and conditioning coach. Um, Probably go on another mission trip too. I got a friend who lives in Azerbaijan who's doing a wrestling specific mission trip out there
Okay.
that I might try and do. Or there's an opportunity from a friend of mine to go to Brazil and do the same thing as well.
That's awesome.
And then just whatever else he puts on me. Just making the most of my whatever time I have left with my parents and my family. Um, you know, uh, yeah, we'll see, kind of thing.
That's awesome. That's awesome, man. I wish you the best of luck with all that for the PT, and I'll be praying for you and your family. And I really appreciate you joining me for season 3, episode 7 of Locked In Podcast. So I'm extremely grateful.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Sage. This was awesome and definitely a blessing.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm grateful to have met you way back when, and that we actually stayed in touch, and not just kind of shrugged it off. So neither one of us committed there, but we stayed in touch, and I think that's kind of something that we got to keep doing, man. Hopefully I can make it out to see you, or you can make it out to see me sometime soon.
Absolutely, brother. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. I appreciate you guys. Make sure to follow Garrett on Instagram, Garrett_Kappes, and then follow the podcast at @official_locked_in podcast as well for updates. Again, Garrett, appreciate you, man. And we'll talk to you later.
Yep. Thanks, Sage.